Welcome to Pastor's Chat today. Well, we're looking at a new psalm, Psalm 53. Now, what's interesting about Psalm 53, if you'll go back and read Psalm 14, you're going to find out that it's almost a repeat. And this psalm also has a title. It's called To the Chief Musician, set to Mahalath, a contemplation or maskil of David. Now the word Mahalath has to do with sorrow or sickness, and so this psalm was written kind of talking about a sickness that will be upon the nation of Israel one day. And some people believe this is a prophecy, especially dealing with Antichrist during the tribulation period. Contemplation or maskil of David speaks to the fact that it's a psalm of instruction. And it was written to the chief musician, which means just like Psalm 14, it was to be sung. It was to be used to teach the people. And what a great way to teach children, to teach us ourselves even and others, the Word of God by singing. And when you learn a tune and you learn the words to it, you keep it in your head a lot longer than just learning the words by themselves. And so it's a psalm that is written for instruction for a time of sorrow and sin and sickness. And it's a psalm that we believe, as you look at 14 and 53, almost exactly the same. Now, I like what Phillips said about that. Phillips, in his commentary, said, while Psalm 14 and 15 are much the same in content, they're quite different in character. Psalm 14 is a song. Psalm 53 is a sermon. Psalm 14 deals with God's verdict. Psalm 53 with God's vengeance. Psalm 14 has to do with the sin of man, while Psalm 53 with the man of sin. Psalm 14 is judicial. Man is brought into court and found guilty. Psalm 53 is judgmental. Man is caught with the arms of rebellion in his hands and swept away. Psalm 14 is interpreted to us in Romans. Psalm 53 is interpreted to us in the book of Revelation. Now, one major difference you'll notice in Psalm 14, God is called Jehovah 3 times. In Psalm 53, he is always called Elohim, and he's called Elohim 7 times. And so Psalm 14 begins the same as Psalm 53. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. The fool dethrones God. It's interesting that in this psalm, Elohim is used, meaning creator God. God created us in his own image, but now man says there is no God. We don't need God. And I think it's interesting that both these psalms begin, the fool says, not out loud. That's not where it begins. He doesn't proclaim it and write a book about it. He says in his heart, he says there's no God. You go to Romans chapter 1 and you find that there, because we knew God, we didn't glorify him as God. We loved lawlessness. We loved sin more than we loved God. So we suppressed the truth, Romans 1:17, and we live in our unrighteousness. We live in our sin. And that's what you find here. The fool says in his heart, there's no God. Why? Why does he say there's no God? Because they're corrupt. They have done abominable iniquity, and there is none who does good. And God looks down from heaven upon the children of men to see if there are any who understand, who seek God. But every one of them is turned aside. They've altogether become corrupt. There is none who does good, no, not one. That's what happens when in your heart you proclaim there's no God. It's because you're covering up for your sin. You don't want to be accountable for your sin, and so you don't want a God around to have to deal with your sin. And my friend, that's the condition of the world, and will be in the tribulation period when Antichrist takes over. They will deny the very existence of God with his lies. Well, God bless you as you contemplate and think about this psalm, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day.